Once we got there, Dante pulled up the car around the back of the apartment so I could use the back entrance to get in. I got out of the car and looked around, ensuring no one was lurking around. Then I walked through the back door. Once inside, I noticed the first floor to be empty, and there was only a doorman. I walked towards the elevator and pushed the button for the elevator to open. Once it opened, I entered and pressed the button for the 10th floor. I walked out of the elevator, walked across the hall towards our door, and looked for the spare key, which we used to hide under the welcome rug. Once I found the key, I unlocked the front door. I walked straight to my room and grabbed my journal. Suddenly, I realized I had the letter with me, so I left it there. I heard my window opening, and there he was, catching me. He looked at me and said, "So you're going to leave this place?" I looked at him and said, "You expect me to stay here after you killed my parents? Moreover, you killed them as they had attacked your father. Your father harmed us just as badly as my father could ever do." Nathaniel snarled at me and said, "Your father betrayed us by attacking my father. We were trying to protect all of you." I smiled and said, "Protect us? You must be kidding. Let me show you what your father did to us." I lifted my shirt and showed him several scars his father had inflicted upon me during my training. He crossed his arms and said it had to be done. How else could you get aura implanted into your body? I pulled down my shirt and looked at him. I say, "Do you think most of our kind wants our children to die this way?" I mean, you cannot even let our siblings be given birth by humans or live normal life. It was the reason behind Dad having a death wish. He was about to lose 4 of his children due to the laws made by your gang. We made a deal a week ago, and I plan to go with the deal. So goodbye, Nathaniel. He reached his hand towards me and yelled, "Elena, wait. Let's sit and talk about this." I stopped and said, "No, I am leaving, and I'm never coming back. You betrayed all of us. Goodbye." I ran out of the apartment and towards the car. Once I reached the car, I hopped inside and asked Dante to drive off. He looked in the rearview mirror, saw an angry look etched on my face, and asked, "What's wrong?" I closed my eyes and said, "Nathaniel showed up while I was in my room and tried to convince me to stay." Dante asked, "Should we worry about him following us?" I held back tears as I said no. He will keep his word. He reached back, placed a hand on my knee, and said, "All right." I opened my eyes and asked, "So where are we heading?" Dante glanced at me and said, "Piqua, Ohio." I looked out the window and asked, "Where is it?" He said, "It is 30 or 40 minutes north of Dayton." I glanced downward, fidgeted with my fingers, and said, "Oh, so what do I need to know about our new family?" He smiled and said, "You will live with Rose and Isaac Dixon. Your father made this plan a week ago, so they should be well prepared for your arrival." However, they think your names are Nyla and Sophia Johnson. According to them, you are in the 7th grade and your sister's in the 5th grade. I whisper, "Sounds good to me." I like the name Sophia and Second. I looked over at her and said, "You look like a person named Sophia." She laughed and said, "I like your new name too." I looked back at Dante and said, "I like it too." "So are we driving or flying to Ohio?" Dante said, "Joelle is flying and we are driving." I felt confused and asked, "Why is she flying and when did she leave?" He said, "She had already left for her flight. She is already gone. However, she is flying as she needs to meet with your family before both of you reach there." I looked out of the window and asked, "Oh, gotcha. So, how long is the drive to Ohio?" He smiled and said, "If we drive nonstop, it should take us about a day and a few hours to reach there." I said, "Well, this will be a long drive." He said, "Yes, it surely would be, but it would be worth it in the end." I leaned against the door and said, "I guess you're right." He said, "Go ahead and rest for a while. We have a long drive ahead of us." After driving nonstop without stopping in between, we reached Piqua, Ohio. I looked out of the window and saw several fast food restaurants and stores. It seemed fascinating and different. After driving nonstop without stopping in between, we reached Piqua, Ohio. I looked out of the window and saw several fast food restaurants and stores. It seemed fascinating and different. Dante looked around the exit for a gas station and told us, "We are going to stop to get the gas tank filled up, and then I will call Joelle." I rubbed my eyes while I said, "Okay. Do you care if we go in and grab candy or something for ourselves? I want to eat something unhealthy, as I am allowed to eat what I want now." He smiled and said, "Yeah, go for it. Both of you deserve it." I grinned and said, "Yes, we do. And don't worry, I won't get any pop." He laughed and said, "Good, as pop is horrible for you." I laughed, and he pulled into a gas station named Speedway. He parked the car near one of the gas pumps, and we got out. Colleen and I ran towards the carryout area and grabbed candies of various types, including Snickers. If you wonder why we had so many candies, we weren't allowed to eat sweets while we were in the dark arts. However, now we could, and I plan on taking advantage of the situation. We returned to the car as Dante hung up the phone and paid for the gas. When he saw us coming back, he smiled and asked, "Are you ready to go meet your new parents?" I looked downwards and said, "I can't say I am, but I know we need to do this." Colleen smiled and said, "I feel the same way. Can't we stay with you?" Dante hugged us and said, "No, you cannot. Unfortunately, you need to hide from them." Then he released us from his embrace, and we all got back into the car and drove to Mr. and Mrs. Dixon's house. It took us about 15 minutes to reach our new home. As we pulled up the driveway, I saw Joelle and two other people standing. They looked similar to a couple in their mid to late 30s and seemed to be friendly people. I didn't know how close I could get to them. Dante looked back and asked, "Are you okay? You seem to be nervous." I shook my head and said, "I wouldn't say nervous. It's about not wanting to feel my emotions right now. Moreover, I don't feel good about dragging other people into our complicated situation, as it will also put their lives in danger." Colleen smiled and said, "We are. I think it's a good thing. We don't have to worry about anything bad anymore and get to live and get the opportunity of living a normal life for once." I sighed and said, "Yeah, maybe you are right. But I don't like our situation. However, I need to deal with it." He grinned and said, "Yeah, what are you thinking about?" I looked downwards and asked, "Where did Jacqueline and Nolan run to?" Dante sighed and said, "Well, this is an unexpected question. They ran to a place somewhere in Arizona." I sighed and said, "Well, I guess I don't get to know if my feelings towards him were genuine or not." Dante smiled and said, "You never know. Things might change. Jacqueline has always been protective of him. She will probably come back." I shrugged and said, "It's what it is. Let's go meet our new family." Colleen smiled and nodded in the affirmative. I got out of the car and helped Colleen get out as well. Once we were out, Dante walked around the car and led us up to the house. Joelle walked up to us and introduced us to Mr. and Mrs. Dixon. She said, "Rose and Isaac, I would like you to meet your new children, Nyla and Sophia." Rose extended a hand for us to shake and said, It's so nice to meet both of you, and I hope we can provide you with a nice place to live. I know it's not much, but it's a nice area. I looked at her and said, "It seems different than where we are from." Isaac laughed and said, "I bet it is, especially as you used to live in San Francisco. However, I promise we will try to fulfill all your needs." "It's nice to be assured of it," I said as Dante smacked me on the back of the head. I reached behind me. He finally smiled and said, "Sorry about what she said. She's been behaving in this way since she came to us. However, both of them are nice." I rolled my eyes and Colleen said, "Yeah, she often behaves this way around new people. Once she starts trusting you, she will behave more openly around you." Rose smiled and said, "We can understand. It's going to be hard for both of you for a while. We figured it ourselves as we were getting older children, but I believe she would eventually trust us." Joelle laughed and said, "I hope it happens, but we will leave them with you. Give us a call if you need anything." Isaac smiled as he grabbed our bags and said, "I will call you if something happens. So, girls, what do you say we go inside the house?" Colleen and I shook our heads in the affirmative and headed inside. Believe it or not, we started trusting them over time, and we became one big happy family. Eventually, they adopted another baby and named him Max. However, you might be wondering about Shane and Nolan. I'm still in contact with both of them. Colleen and I talk to Shane every night. Nolan and I tried hiding for 2 years. He finally moved here with his mom. They say they moved here because they needed to keep getting injections with the Black Heart and protect themselves. However, with that, I was now able to date Nolan and finally be happy.